Ray Simpson, known as Simmo to his oppos, was quite simply a one-man tour de force. Known for his legendary colourful language, fearless nature, incredible knowledge of tactics and disdain for pretentiousness, he was one of only 4 Australian Vietnam War Victoria Cross recipients. Before we dive in, just some admin. So for this mini-series on real-life heroes, there's going to be a slightly different format to my usual videos. The criteria for this mini-series is that the recipient earned the highest medal for gallantry in their country. We'll look at the person's background, their military career, and then the citation or action that they were involved in to receive their award. We'll then finish it off with a roundup of their full medal awards. Thanks to viewers' suggestions, I've got some great personalities lined up and stories of heroism ranging from a variety of different countries. Just looking at the man's rugged portrait, his no-nonsense attitude and reputation for a bit of colourful effing and jeffing, you can just imagine the respect, reverence and possibly fear that Simpson would have installed in raw recruits and junior soldiers. Born on February 16, 1926, in a suburb of Sydney, New South Wales, Simpson's journey from a troubled childhood to becoming one of Australia's most decorated soldiers is nothing short of extraordinary. Simpson's early life was marked by hardship. After his mother deserted the family, he was placed in a home for boys and separated from his siblings. Despite these challenges, Simpson's resilience and determination set the stage for his future heroism. After a spot of time working as a labourer, Simpson joined the 2nd Australian Imperial Force in March 1944 during World War II. Spending time with a holding battalion, guarding Japanese prisoners of war, and working with the pioneers, Simpson travelled around the Pacific, but at this stage in his career, served mainly support or rear echelon duties. That said, Simpson may have seen action at Tarakan in 1945 when his pioneer unit, the 2nd 3rd Pioneer Battalion, was used as infantry and encountered strong Japanese resistance. At some point during his service in the Pacific, Simpson contracted malaria. Upon returning to Australia in June 1946, Simpson was hospitalised with the disease in August. Demobbed in January 1947, after 4 years or so of working various odd jobs, such as a tram conductor, Simpson, like many young men of his generation after the war, found it difficult to adjust into Civvy Street. And in 1951, he re-enlisted in the Australian Army. Simpson then served with the 3rd Battalion Royal Australian Regiment and was sent to Korea to join them as a reinforcement. Part of the 27th British Commonwealth Brigade, during 1951, this unit was one of 3 to receive a US Presidential Unit Citation after the Battle of Kapyong. This battle was fought between the 22nd and 25th of April 1951. The unit was also involved in fighting in the Battle of Mariansang. Remaining in Korea until November 1954, the 3rd Battalion Royal Australian Regiment suffered a total of over 230 men killed. Interesting factoid, the 1st Battalion Royal Australian Regiment served 12 months in Korea. The 2nd Battalion served just 4 months before the armistice. However, the 3rd Battalion served the duration of the war, earning itself the nickname of Old Faithful. In 1953, Simpson was promoted to corporal. While serving in Korea, many servicemen took their leave in Japan at this time. It's here Simpson likely met his wife, Shoko, and got married. He was then posted to 2nd Battalion Royal Australian Regiment in 1955 and served in counterinsurgency operations in Malaya for the next 2 years. In many ways, a British and Commonwealth mini-Vietnam, but with different outcomes. But suffice to say, it taught Australian veterans valuable lessons in guerrilla and jungle fighting that they would bring to bear a decade later in Vietnam. During this period, Simpson demonstrated his leadership skills and was promoted to sergeant. After returning from Malaya, Simpson then passed selection for the Australian Special Air Service Regiment. That's no small achievement. Formed in 1957 as a company, The regiment was modelled on the British SAS, which it shares the motto, "Who Dares Wins." Later, in 1964, it expanded into a regiment. He then conducted multiple tours of duty in Vietnam with the elite Australian Army Training Team Vietnam, or AATTV. We've gone into these chaps before in my video on Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. Led by legendary commander Ted Sarong, this 30-man team were all experienced officers or senior NCOs who were tasked with training South Vietnamese forces. Suffice to say, these AATTV men were the cream of the crop from one of the best armed forces in the world. Not blokes to be trifled with. Interestingly, they were the only significant-sized unit to be awarded the 1962 British General Service Medal with South Vietnam clasp. By the end of 1962, working closely with the Americans, Simpson had earned their respect and praise. Robert L. Korchek, an American captain, sent him the following letter of appreciation. "I've seen few soldiers who possess the broad military knowledge, know-how, and common sense that you do, Sergeant Simpson. I speak for my men as well when I say that I would indeed welcome the chance to serve with you again in the future. My thanks again to a professional soldier for a job well done." Simpson's first tour of duty ended in July 1963 when he was posted back to Australia to become an instructor at the Officer Cadet School. 1 year later, in July 1964, for his second tour of duty, Simpson once again deployed to Vietnam as part of the AATTV. Newly promoted to Warrant Officer Class 2 in 1964, on his second tour of duty in Vietnam with the AATTV, Simpson was awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal. Based at Ta Co, Simpson accompanied South Vietnamese military patrols in the country's northwest, focusing on monitoring and controlling border infiltration, which was being conducted by North Vietnamese Army and Viet Cong elements. During one such patrol, on the 16th of September 1964, Simpson earned his first gallantry award, the Distinguished Conduct Medal. Whilst out on patrol, his unit was ambushed by Viet Cong insurgents and Simpson shot. Although severely wounded in the right leg, he held off the enemy whilst calling for assistance by radio. Incredibly, he then rallied his men and repelled several enemy assaults until aid arrived, which was lucky as their ammunition was almost gone and Simpson was weak from loss of blood. He was medevaced by helicopter and later convalesced in Tokyo. An examination showed the bullet entered his right knee and traversed the length of his thigh, shattering his thigh bone. Recovering from his wounds, he was then reassigned to the 1st Battalion Royal Australian Regiment, based back in Australia. Leaving the army once again in 1966. After missing the army, amazingly, Simpson reportedly turned up in Saigon and enlisted again in May 1967. He was once again placed in the AATTV and became their longest-serving member. 2 years later, on the 6th of May 1969, Simpson commanded a Montagnard Company. This was attached to the 232nd Mobile Strike Force Company. Known as Mike Force, this Special Forces unit served specifically with indigenous soldiers. Simpson's company was tasked with a search and clear operation near the Laos-Cambodian border, southwest of Ben Het. During the operation, the leading platoon came under heavy fire. Simpson led the remainder of the company to its assistance. He then dashed forward, reached a fellow Australian advisor who had been wounded and carried him to safety. Then, having tried unsuccessfully to subdue an enemy position with grenades, he covered the withdrawal of his company while still carrying his wounded comrade. In further fighting, 5 days later on the 11th of May, he organised the rescue of wounded men trapped by enemy fire, placing himself between them and the enemy until the withdrawal was completed. For his bravery in both actions, he was awarded Australia's highest honour, the Victoria Cross. A few months later, in August 1969, Simpson was deployed to the Mekong Delta. He was one of about a dozen advisors training civilians in local defence. They were known as Village Defence Advisory Teams. This would be his last role in Vietnam. The Australian Army website describes him in the following. Simpson's character was complex. At times, he was diffident in company. At others, direct and blunt. He was tough, fit, and dependable, but also rude, mischievous and exasperating. A proud, moral and compassionate man who was devoted to his wife. He was completely free of pretension and had simple material needs. He was well read in tactics and military history, as indicated by his infantry skills. His colourful language was legendary. Simpson's love of the army was matched only by his devotion to his wife. In an article published in 1969, Simpson explained his 3 tours to Vietnam. I keep extending service because of my Japanese wife, Shoko. She has to stay in Japan at the moment because her mother has a bad heart. So being up here, i.e. in Vietnam, I get extension leave every time I decide to stay on. That way, I can see her for 30 days. Discharged from the army in 1970 after service spanning over 26 years, Simpson managed to get an administrative role at the Australian Embassy in Tokyo, working there until his death of cancer, aged only 52, in October 1978. Simpson's ashes are interred at Yokohama War Cemetery. In reference to his medals, I've seen various slight variations to medal sets or ribbon bars attributed to him. The online Australian War Memorials medal set image I've seen for Simpson, for unknown reasons, omits his reported silver and bronze star. I didn't want to leave out these valued medals, as well as one other that also seems that he was entitled to over the passage of time. A recent accurate image I've seen of his awards, with these medals included, is the fantastic The Victoria Cross Men of Valour Vietnam portrait frame, honouring Ray Simpson from the Returned and Services League of Australia Albion Park Club. What a wonderful way of honouring his memory. Looks like the RSL Club also serves Victoria Bitter, my favourite Australian tipple. Strangely, you can't seem to find that much in the UK. I can only imagine what incredible stories must have come out of Simpson after 1 or 2 drinks. So in summary we have a Victoria Cross, Distinguished Conduct Medal, Pacific Star for World War II, War Medal, Australian Service Medal 1939-45, Australian Active Service Medal 1945-75 with Vietnam clasp. This is an interesting one. The medal was established in 1997, nearly 20 years after Simpson's passing, and recognises warlike service from the end of World War II until 1975. Simpson would not have had this in his original medal set. Nice touch by the chaps at the RSL for updating and adding this medal. Korean War Medal, UN Service Medal with Korea clasp, 1918 to 1962 British General Service Medal with Malaya clasp, 1962 to 2007 British General Service Medal with South Vietnam clasp, Australian issued Vietnam Medal, 1977 Jubilee Medal. I suspect Simpson received this working at the Australian Embassy in Tokyo as a public servant. Long Service Good Conduct Medal, Australia version, US Silver Star, US Bronze Star, Republic of South Vietnam Campaign Medal, and last but not least, to top off this wonderful assortment of awards, 2 unit citations, a US Army Meritorious Unit Commendation, and a Republic of South Vietnam Gallantry Citation, with palm. For this video, I've used a variety of sources online, ranging from Victoria Cross Online, Australian War Memorial, and the Anzac Portal, to name but a few. With multiple sources, there are slight variations of service dates and other minor details about Simpson's life, but I have tried my best with the information at hand. Of note as well, even though during the Vietnam War period 4 Victoria Crosses were awarded for Australian service personnel, in 2024 Richard Norden was awarded the Victoria Cross for Australia posthumously after his death in 1972 from unrelated causes. The Victoria Cross for Australia was established in January 1991 and was first awarded in 2009. The Victoria Cross was awarded to all 4 Vietnam recipients during the period of the war. In summary, what an incredible and varied career Simpson had, and I hope I've done justice to him. Thanks for watching. I hope you found some value from this, and I'll see you in the next one.